What we are seeing is the collapse of the modern welfare state. We're seeing it in Greece and Spain and Italy and other countries, and we're seeing it in our own. When they use the word unsustainable, that's what it means. When they talk about the debt being a cancer, that's what it means. The collapse of the modern welfare state. You see it in socialist democracies as well. So, this is what's key. Understanding what's going on around you, not what people say is going on, but what's actually going on. Social Security's in a state of collapse. Medicare, Medicaid, collapse. Our financial system has been pushed to the brink with social engineering going on for 60 years. Collapse. As a result, the housing market, collapse. Our own government is telling us that millions and millions of jobs that have been lost cannot be recovered. Collapse. And it is important that we tell everybody that the modern welfare state is collapsing from its own weight, its own illogic, and its own coercion. Now here's the issue. What are we going to transition into? More tyranny or liberty? And that's the battle. Are we going to transition into a society in which the government continues to coerce and seize and impose and abuse and torment, as Obama preaches, or one that returns to justice and righteousness and individualism and private property, as the founders preached? Now, I do a lot of reading, particularly philosophy and history. And I am focused on like a laser, on Karl Marx. I am focused like a laser on his cohort, Friedrich Engels. And without getting too complicated, Marx promoted this theory of dialectical materialism. Hegel came up with this theory of dialecticalism. But to keep it simple, let me focus on Marx. Marx believed, bottom line, that the proletariat, we would call the proletariat today the middle class, would rise up against the bourgeois, meaning the capitalists, and demand socialism. He believed that socialism was the natural outcome of the human condition and materialism. And he worked on this theory. I don't think he was a particularly smart guy. I think he was more political advocate than philosopher, but that's just one man's opinion. With Friedrich Engels. Engels believed that the larger the proletariat, that is the middle class, the greater the chance for a socialist revolution. Well, they were both wrong. Because in the United States of America, the middle class, and the reason I don't like this middle class term is because it's a Marxist phrase. We don't have classes in this country. Oh, yes, the politicians create classes based on wealth or income, based on whatever suits their purposes so they can divide us into an internal revenue code. Okay, you're rich because we say you earn this much. You're middle class because... I will use these terms, but let me stipulate up front that I don't embrace them. But Engels thought the larger the middle class of the proletariat, the greater the chance of a socialist revolution. And yet here in the United States of America, quite the opposite. The larger the so-called middle class, the less chance of a socialist revolution. And this is driving the Marxist ideologues of one bent or another in the Obama administration crazy. And in Congress, crazy. And this is why they rammed home government-run health care. They cannot believe that despite their propaganda, their demagoguery, their dissembling, their deceit, despite the help from academia and the media, the quote-unquote proletariat or middle class didn't support it. This is a great blow to them. So now they have to exercise raw power. And isn't it true that Marxism always fails for this very reason? It always winds up with the exercise of raw power. They can't win by persuasion or influence. They can't win by debate. It's always raw power. Then we get sort of these Marxist light type philosophers or policymakers, John Maynard Keynes. And he lived from the late 1800s, 1883, excuse me, 1946, and you hear his name all the time. You probably don't even know what it's about. People throw it around. The Keynesian theory, which comes down to basically this: government spending should be inversely proportional to private trade. What do I mean? When trade is booming, government should spend little. When the economy slumps, public spending should go up. In other words, the government can determine demand by its own fiscal policies. Now, two things about that. First of all, the statists today are not Keynesians, because they believe the government should spend whether the economy is in a slump or whether the economy is chugging along. Hence, the disastrous financial condition of the United States government. That is us. Because even Keynes wouldn't support what Obama is doing. And yet, even if they followed the Keynesian theory, it would be a disaster. The economy's too big. There's too many people for the government to effectively control supply and demand. All the Keynesians would do is create dislocation, shortages, bottom line misery. So, but the point is, they're not even following Keynes. So who are they following? What are they doing? Well, they're just following what they believe is the quickest way to keep and exercise power.